Okay, you know how I just said I'll intro and I got something? I didn't have anything.
Um,
So that this is the intro. I lied. You
that's
could say it
rough.
was a lie of Jay.
Dang, that was almost good. The
The
only
thing is though is that
problem,
like I lied about saying I had nothing for the intro. That whole thing was a setup for the lie of Jay joke. So that was the real lie.
can we get a round of applause for that? That was a good one. Thank you, thank you, thank you to Travis for providing sound effects today. All right, that'll be the pod. We're good. That's all I got.
Okay, yep, we're done. No, yeah, let's talk about Liza P.
Liza P.
Yeah.
It's a 5 out of 5. I'm so pissed.
It's not a 5
Trav
out of
was
5
right.
game.
It's a 5 out of 5. It's a top 3 Souls game. I'm fucking pissed. I'm livid that like I was like, no, what? No. First of all, okay, let me back way up. Let me back way up. So originally I thought that that game looked like garbage.
Like when? What time frame is this?
Yeah. So when the game was like first announced and they first showed it, I was like, oh, another wannabe Souls game.
So this was post 9/11.
Yeah, for sure. For
Okay.
sure, post 9/11.
Just want to set that frame of reference.
Yep, that's correct, John. I just thought the game looked like garbage. There was that other Souls-like game that came out. I want to say like last year.
Oh,
It was also very
what was it
Bloodborne-like.
called?
I totally forget.
It's the one where you're like the naked man.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not talking about Mortal Shell.
Oh, that's what I thought you were talking about.
No, I'm talking about there was another one that was very Bloodborne-like. We'll add it in post, but basically, I thought Lies of P was just going to be another, wannabe. There's just been so many where it's like, hey, that's a 3 out of 5 game, like like Mortal Shell or whatever. The original Lords of the Fallen. None of those games are, or like the Surge, whatever it's called. None of those games are bad, but they're not. They're just not the same level of quality that I think FromSoft usually pulls off. And so I didn't expect Lies of P to be that level of quality. And what I'm getting at is
like,
that
what about it do you think
it
that,
is.
like, oh yeah, this is the same level? Like, what about it is that level of quality? Like,
yeah,
what do you
there's a
see?
lot of things. Because what I will say is that it has nothing really to do with graphics, right? Like though I do think it looks better than a lot of even FromSoft games, because FromSoft games don't have like a super high bar. So the fact that this game is in Unreal, it's like, hey, most of the time it looks pretty good. You've pointed out like some of the issues with the lighting. I think there's some problems there.
I think the lighting in the game is genuinely like pretty awful.
I think it's generally pretty good, but there's some areas where it has some problems. But I think it's just there's a level of attention to detail and care that shines through in almost every aspect of the game. In a way that's very similar to FromSoft games, where it's like, oh, like the way that the lore, the active story, the gameplay, and the themes, your actions, everything I think is tied together in a very, very nice package. And I think generally the game is just fun. Like, it's a very fun game to play. So that gives it like, something, but that's really not even what I'm talking about. Like there's a level of polish there that is a very specific FromSoft type of polish. Like, Elden Ring isn't the most graphically beautiful game. It's not the most mechanically complex game. There are obvious areas in FromSoft games where the games are lacking polish, but what they generally do is smooth over the entire experience in a way that I think Lies of P is mimicking. And that is going to lead me into one of my favorite things about the game, which is that it is mimicking a FromSoft game, and it is incredibly self-aware. there's this meta analysis that you can make of Lies of P about how you're playing as Pinocchio or P or whatever. You don't really know your name, but it's entirely Pinocchio themed, and that you're this, puppet pretending to be a real boy. You're a robot.
The game is pretending to be a Souls game.
Yes, the exact same way that it is self-referencing that, like, hey, I know I'm not actually a FromSoft Souls game, but damn, like, you might be deceived. And I think it goes to the themes of the game. It's Lies of P. It's like, oh, you might think Miyazaki made this game. And I think that they pulled it off in a way where I'm like, as I'm playing it, damn, if I knew nothing and was just coming into this, I would just assume this was a FromSoft game. I don't think any other Souls game Souls-like has even really attempted that. And I think it's a really ballsy move to be like, what if we just like made Bloodborne but like different, every other Souls-like has really tried to change the formula in ways that are more like core, versus like Lies of P. Like, hey, what if we took Bloodborne and then like just like tweaked things until we had our own game, and then like craft a narrative around that. And I want to say that they might have even crafted that narrative like around the fact that like, yeah, we're mimicking, like, oh. So I'm really enjoying it. I think it's so far, I mean, 5 out of 5 is probably extreme, but it's just such a high bar of quality that the things that pull it down are things like, yeah, some weird lighting here and there, and like,
yeah, watching it, there are a couple things that stand out to me. Is I think that when you're comparing it straight to like the best Souls games, I think that it, like, again, I haven't played it, but looking at it, I think it drops the ball in a couple places, and that's like the one that sticks out the most is the boss fights. A lot of the boss fights in Lies of P don't seem particularly like, it's not that they're not good, they just don't have that like that feeling, I guess, of like, oh, you're walking into the big bad boss and oh my god, like they seem like, it's tough to explain, I guess, but that's the first thing that stands out, and that's just based on what I've seen you play and what I've seen Trav play. But Trav stopped playing at the very first boss that I saw, that I was like, oh, this reminds me more of a Souls boss. Like, it's at that bar where it's like, oh, okay, this one is like a solid boss. So that's the first thing that stands out, is the bosses that I've seen I've basically just been like unimpressed with, right? They're mechanically fairly simple. They don't have like a ton of attack patterns. One of the things that's really neat about the Souls series as it progresses is like that, the way they're playing with the knowledge that players have when they walk into a boss fight, and that timing and the tells on windups and stuff. Like, an experienced player is gonna like get themselves got without even like trying. They're just gonna do that because they're reacting to windups without really knowing the patterns.
People start dodge spamming. Yeah.
And so Lies of P, like, again, haven't played it, so I don't know how it feels, but watching it doesn't seem like there's as much of that. It seems more like straightforward in the encounters. And that's like the biggest thing to me that like really stands out, is like, hey, almost all of the Souls games have like really good boss fights. Even the ones that have bad boss fights also have really good boss fights. And Lies of P just seems to like, it's not that they don't like, I don't look at them like, oh, those are terrible bosses.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, none of those are like, oh, that's not like one of those boss fights that you remember forever. There's no like Smo and Ornstein. There's no like, and the other thing that stands out in Lies of P is there's no gimmick boss fights, which are my favorite kinds in Souls games, is the ones.
Not yet. We'll see.
Yeah. But like the ones with like, a really,
right.
really strong gimmick, like you think like Moonlight Butterfly, you think the Iron
Adjudicator.
Golem, Adjudicator. Every Souls game is.
Every Souls game has one. I mean, Volnir is another one. Yeah, Souls games do that. Like actual FromSoft Souls games have those a lot. Yeah.
So that's the thing that like, I'm watching Lies of P and that stands out as like, I wish like the boss fights were on that level, but it's really interesting, like, because there's other stuff about the game that I think is arguably like more interesting than Souls games. And like, to me, that's the the whole system around weapons and like weapon design and leveling up,
build
your skill
crafting in
points.
general, because it's your
Yeah.
it's your arm, it's your, which like you can swap between a bunch of different arms and then
Your
choose
arm,
you
your
can
P
level the
core,
different arms, your P core, like the entire skill tree thing, which
your stats.
the stats, the what's it called, all your like frame parts. So
Yep,
you know,
like equipment.
yeah, which is in a Souls game, it would be, oh, it's your helmet, your body armor, your arms, and your legs. It's essentially the same thing. So yeah, it's like 4 slots, but none of them are cosmetic. Your cosmetics are completely separate,
Which is a major downside.
Oh, I don't
think having
I don't think
gear
that it's
be
a major
cosmetic
downside.
is really cool. That like, hey, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you equip. There's
It's
some
a-
cosmetics in
It's
the
a
game.
trade-off is the thing. It's like, hey, it lets you fashion more freely. So there's a
But there's
plus
not a whole
there.
lot of fashion to begin with.
There's an okay amount, but there's not enough. I would like it if there was,
Yeah.
instead of just like, hey, what's your hat and what's your outfit? It would be cool if there was more slots. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what's the last one? Oh, like the weapon, like your weapon design.
Yeah, you can actually craft your whole weapon. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you have all those systems now coming together. And it reminds me of what we talked about with Armored Core and like the Soul series, where you were saying they're the same. And I pushed back a little. And I was like, well, in Souls games, you can grind out, like get XP and make your character like flat out stronger, like
Yeah.
permanently forever in whatever way you desire, and do that infinitely before going, like, that's like
yeah.
that's an RPG smoothing thing, right? That's, hey, how do we balance player skill and also like, difficulty? And it's like, experience points, let them allocate
Right.
stats, and that smooths out the experience for everybody. Liza P has that like times 5, because you have all those
Yes.
systems now interacting, where it's like, not only do you have your armor and your weapon, the weapons are like even more configurable with like what you can do with them. And like, that's not that much different than like a Souls game just having a million different kinds of weapons. But it's another thing like mechanically to think about when you pick up pieces, is like,
Right.
oh, how do I want to fit these together?
Yeah.
And then you're balancing, with like the P cores and your stats. And it's like, Souls is equipment, weapon stats. Liza P adds the arm and the P core. And that adds a lot of options in how you want to build your character, and also smooths things out even more, because now
Right.
you have more elements of progression. And I think that's kind of why, like, Liza P to me has seemed kind of like, it's not like mainstream, but it has been like a fairly like accessible game, where I've seen people who are like, I'm playing Liza P and I've never played a Souls game before.
And I do think that it's slightly more accessible, really just in the sense that it's it's so weird, because there's arguments that the game is way harder than most Souls games even. I think that it's as close to Sekiro. Like, it's closer to Sekiro than it is to Bloodborne in terms of difficulty. It's a nice in between, actually, where you have some nice build variety, but there's a level of like, man, if you want to beat this boss, like, you gotta like really learn his moves and parry. The difference is that, like, oh, you could go grind, like
Right.
like you're saying. So
Yeah, there's more opportunity, I think, for
Yeah.
smoothing out, and that makes things just generally more accessible.
yeah,
The major downside to that, like, does Liza P have PvP?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess no.
Because that's where you start getting into dangerous stuff. Is like, the
Yeah.
types of builds could be way too strong, and if there's a PvP element, certain things become like, you want to
And I
build
think
like
that's
this.
part of even what makes it more similar to Sekiro too, is like, hey, they have that leeway to do that kind of stuff, because that's an aspect of the core mechanics that they've cut out. And it's interesting, like we were talking the other day, and you were like, oh, like it can't be better than like Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 has like this awesome PvP, and co-op mechanics and all that. And I'm like, oh, at first I was like, oh, that's true. That really does elevate Dark Souls 2 a lot. But I'm like, well, but that doesn't elevate Dark Souls 2 above Sekiro, right? And Sekiro is missing that stuff. And I think, I genuinely think that Liza P is closer to Sekiro than it is to Dark Souls 2, both in terms of quality, fun, and like mechanics.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
so I'm
bonkers.
blown away, is my thing. Is like, I was really, like I said at the beginning, I was really expecting something subpar. I wasn't expecting it to be bad. I was expecting 3 out of 5, maybe 4 if it's really landing. And I'm more like, I think it's baseline for and depending on how the game goes, it could be a 5. And because like right now it's a 5, and it could potentially lower itself down by like, hey, it just kind of gets stale, or the like you're kind of talking about with the bosses, like maybe the bosses really just kind of never click in that Souls way. Because I agree with you that the bosses are a little more generic. There's one boss in particular, I won't spoil anything, but that I had a hard time with, that was fun to learn by the end, and that also like there was a bunch of like, not even a bunch, but like a nice amount of lore tied to, and like some other characters and stuff that kind of took me back. Like that's very FromSofty. It was very Father Gascon, where you're like, oh, that guy I killed has like kind of a tragic backstory, and I've met the characters, and oh shit, so there was a little bit of that, and I was like, that's very FromSofty. Like they're very good at that. And I think that Lies of P is executing. I've been really pleased, really surprised, and baffled that it's just from some no-name studio and not like, not even like there's a big publisher behind it and a no-name studio. It's like, no, dude, it's just, for all intents and purposes, this is from nobody. Like, it's,
yeah.
Who are these people? Who? It's like, it seems to me like they played the shit out of Bloodborne, and we're just like, God, we would love to make a game just like this.
And how does the level design, like, what's your opinion on the level design in the game? Because you're comparing it to Bloodborne.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And my opinion on Bloodborne is the level design in Bloodborne is fucking awful. That it's by
except
far,
for the beginning, right? Like the beginning is good.
It's not the beginning. It's basically, I mean, it's the beginning, but it's everything up. It's
up until
it's Yharnam up until you beat Gascon, until you get to what is it, Odin Chapel?
Odin.
Once you get there, it's like, okay, now the level design in the game becomes really bad. Very Dark Souls 3E, and it becomes, okay, you go do the level, you run, and whatever. There's a couple shortcuts within the level, but like that central, is it Central Yharnam? It's not Old Yharnam. Old Yharnam's a different level.
No, Old Yharnam's. You
start in Central Yharnam?
Central Yharnam, I believe, is the intro, basically. Yeah.
The way that
you could be wrong. Travis, go ahead and look that one up. Let us know. Just feel free to.
The way that level like wraps in on itself, and like even wraps in with like really later stuff, and like it loops back into that. And it's that section of the game. It's not even just at the beginning, but the way that stuff eventually connects to it and wraps into that, and that there's late game stuff in there. That part of the game is like, that's peak Souls level design. Like there are a couple instances in the other games that hit this as well. But the other games I think are generally like more consistent throughout. But that stands out to me as like, hey, that's a really solid level in Bloodborne, that Central Yharnam area.
Yeah.
And then after that, it becomes awful. It's just go follow the path, go like the levels become so bad. I'm curious as to how Lies of P compares not just to Bloodborne, but to like all the Souls games, and like how are levels laid out. Right.
So I do think that, saying like, oh, the levels are really bad is probably more like, hey, they're subpar. Again, it's more like what it's less than what you would expect from a Souls game after stuff like Demon Souls and Dark Souls. So it's like, hey, maybe the Forbidden Forest or whatever, or the Witch's Abode aren't like the best levels in Bloodborne. I don't think they're horrible, but they are lower quality. They're more simple. They're linear, a little shortcut here and there.
I think they're horrible.
But I think that they're fine. Like those are 3 out of 5 zones.
1-1 Demon Souls is like
that's a 5 out of 5 zone.
Home run first zone.
Yeah, I know, but there are also levels in Demon Souls that are 3 out of 5 as well. Where like they're fine. No complaints, or I have some complaints, but they're not huge. So like even 1-2 I think is like, it's fine. That is nowhere near as good as 1-1, right? We can agree. In Demon's, we're backing up here. We're going to talk about Demon Souls for a second. 1-1 in Demon Souls is a 5 out of 5 level in a video game. I think it's really good. 1-2 in Demon Souls, I think, is a 3 or a 4. Like at best, a 4.
I kind of disagree, only because, like, if you're playing the game, they happen in tandem, and so you go from like the more labyrinthian style one
into this linear,
yeah, and it's like it's there to juxtapose that feeling very intentionally.
Lies of P, the reason I bring that up is Lies of P is very similar where okay, well, first of all, the intro of the game is very Demon's Souls intro, where it's not 1-1, it's 0-0 or whatever, where you have the intro level that is teaching you the mechanics. Enemies are really easy to beat. There is like a shortcut for when you die, but it's basically just a shortcut to the boss at the end of the intro kind of thing. You know, like it's not labyrinthian at all. And then you get into Lies of P's like first area, and it is juxtaposed like, oh, there are some branching paths, but then you realize, oh, it's not that intense. It's actually, now that I've beaten that zone, I'm like, oh, it's actually really simple. There's like a couple paths, but they, you know, it's just like a little branching, and then kind of like it really is linear. And then after that zone, it's like, oh, a more linear zone, and then after that, a little bit more labyrinthian, and then a little linear. So it's kind of like using like the level design in different ways. The main thing that I like about it is the actual encounter design. I think that's where it succeeds the best, and that's what allows a more simplified, slightly less interesting level design to shine, is that like, oh yeah, like the level design itself it's like a 3 out of 5, but they're doing really, really decent things with enemy placement and like items and little gotchas, where it's like the game is fun. It's engaging. As I'm exploring a new area, I'm pretty aware that it's fairly linear most of the time, and then when an area comes across where I'm like, holy shit, there's 3 directions I can go right now, it takes me back, and I'm like, wait, what do I want to do? And then it turns out, oh, one of those was just like a little loop around, grab an item. The other one was a dead end, and the other one was actually like, you know, the right way to go. But that's how it really functions. There's not like, oh, I can go this way, and that's going to take me to this completely different area, or I can go this way, and that's going to take me to it.
And there's never a moment like in Sekiro
so far,
where it's like, hey, like Sekiro is really cool in the way that it presents its like non-linearity, where it's like, hey, the game's basically a linear experience. You go from combat zone to combat zone, and then until, and then it's like, okay, where the fuck are you going? There's nothing like that in Lies of P. Like, there's
not yet. But I think I'm about to be at the point that Trav is at, which I think is going to be the equivalent of Genichiro in Sekiro. That's my take on what that boss that Travis is at is, based solely on all of the progression systems in the game. Because it seems like, hey, I'm about to be at a climax, right? Like, very similar to Genichiro. When I first played Sekiro, I was like, is this the end? Like, that's how climactic that battle with Genichiro at the top of the tower is.
I feel like it's a more valid question, though, where you're at in the game based on, like, duration of play. Or does it happen so early in Sekiro?
It happens earlier in
Sekiro,
like, yeah.
Is this the fucking end of the game?
But the thing is, with Lies of P, it's like, dude, I have 2... All right, so the whole skill tree system, you know, I don't think this is really spoilers, but, you know, there's the skill tree system that's separate from your leveling, like we were talking about. It's called your P organ, and it, as I can see, has 5 chunks, essentially. And I've completed 2. I just unlocked the 3rd chunk. Oh, and by the way, I didn't complete 2. You can actually completely fill out the entire tree, which I'm guessing is going to be a new game plus incentive. Like, hey, I can complete all of the shit. But what I am expecting is that by the end of the game, assuming I found the majority, if not all of like the upgrade materials, that I should at least have unlocked some of the 5th tier of upgrades. But I'm on the 3rd, which makes me think, and that's just one of the progression systems. There's also your arm, which I've only done 1 out of 4 upgrades on a single of 10 arms, where I'm like, and there's up to 4 on each arm. So I'm like, dude, I've been exploring like crazy. I'm leveling up, I'm doing all this stuff, and there's a bunch of different things in the game where I'm like, I'm nowhere near close to having explored what this system is offering, and it's very obvious. Like, it's like, oh, look, this goes from 1 to 5. You just got to 3. And I'm like, there's no way they're gonna be like, oh, you'll unlock 5 in New Game Plus 2. So I'm like, okay, like I have to have a good amount of game left, and they might start throwing.
You're assuming also
they might start throwing those upgrade materials at me more frequently.
Yeah, you're assuming that the rate is going to be similar or the same, but at some point they might dump.
It has been pretty consistent. So I'm like, oh, either it's going to be a sudden, oh my god, like, but that'll be a huge downside. Like if the game pulls that. So I'm expecting that the game is really, I might be halfway through once I beat the boss that Trav is at, because I think that it's meant to be a turning point in the game. Like it might be like a ROM or a Genichiro or whatever, which Genichiro isn't a halfway point, but it's a turning point where you were like
very much that is the end of Act 2.
Yeah, it's going to be the end of an act is the thing, cuz like I know that like when I talk to a character, he's like, "Oh, there's these 4 areas and I've done 3 of them and I'm on the 4th, and I know that the boss that Trav is fighting is at the end of that area." So I'm like, okay, there has to be an entire second half of this game is what I'm thinking at this point. And I've already played it for like, it's probably like 20 hours. Like I put a good amount in, if not more than that. And so I'm like, the game's already bigger than I expected. It's more advanced than I was expecting. The boss I'm at right now is the equivalent to something like Lady Maria in fucking Bloodborne's DLC, where like, oh my god, this is just like a hard lady boss that like is like,
I've smashed her.
Yeah, I'm not. And I also think Trav would potentially do the same in Bloodborne because of the way he plays his games. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna hyper level strength, and then bosses that are lighter weight like that, it's like, oh, dude, I mega stagger. My build is a little bit different. It's lightweight. It's fast, so I have to rely more on parrying and stuff like that. So it makes it more technically like demanding. But in a way, if I get good, it just turns into super easy, because it's like, oh, like I nailed the timing. That's just like a hard process to go through. Yeah, I think going back to like the level design, I think that the levels are mostly linear, and I've noticed it multiple times where I'm like, oh, these are not very branching. There's a couple little alcoves to explore here and there. Oh, a side character to go find, a little side thing to do here. There's a bit of backtracking where you'll find an item, and then, oh, you can go give that item to somebody that you met in like 3 zones ago or whatever, but the game tells you what zone. Like, it'll be like, oh, you found an item, and then in your menu, it'll show like that zone with that item's icon next to it, so you'll know, oh, I need to go back there. You might not know exactly where to go. Like, that's happened to me a couple times where I'm like, where was that person, But it is much more linear, but I think the game succeeds with like its encounter design and the general like pacing of levels. It is much more like Dark Souls 3 is what it is. It's much more like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne to an extent, rather than something like Dark Souls. And I don't think it's trying to be like Dark Souls. I think it's trying to set up some fun encounters for you to mess with your weapons and
it
fight
much
this
more
guy.
Combat oriented than like the RPG, like be in this whatever.
Yes.
Like it's not that immersive.
Oh, go
element.
explore this world in whatever way you want. No, it's, hey, play through this story, experiment with your build, get good. Still, I think that there's definitely a strong aspect of get good mentality in Lies of P. So yeah, I mean, I'm it's between a 4 and a 5 for me. Like, I'm like, if it ends insano strong, it'll elevate. It'll secure itself as a 5. If it ends really bad, I maybe will drop down to a 3. But I would be blown away.
Like, it would have to end really bad.
It would have to be like, holy shit, this game is unfinished. But dude, Dark Souls is
they fucking have the meta chaos in Lies of P.
Yeah, but dude, that's what my point is. Like, dude, Dark Souls is one of my favorite games of all time, and that game's notably and incredibly noticeably fucking bad toward the end, and it's like I still like it, but it has the benefit of like, there's a lot of other stuff going for that game, plus the DLC I think adds a lot where that content's really solid, and then so the end game is kind of bolstered.
Yeah, plus the part of like Dark Souls 1 that everyone says is really bad, like it would just be a level. Like those would just be levels in Dark Souls 3.
Man,
They would be.
the Bed of Chaos, or not the Bed of Chaos, but the Lost Izalith is
That's
the
a Dark
only
Souls
is
3
the
level.
it's the only one where, oh no, that might actually be the lowest quality thing that's ever come out of that company since Demon Souls. You know, like since before Demon Souls or whatever. Like, it's a fine level. Like again, yeah, like you're saying, it is more like, but it's
like,
worse. Like,
so what it reminds me the most of in Dark Souls 3 is like before you get into the poison swamp at the Watchers, the swamp area right before that with like all the crabs, like the crabs, and there's that little side area with like the castle. To me, it's like that section is Lost Izalith.
Yeah, those are very similar. I agree. The nice thing is that, hey, that section branches, and it's a bit shorter, right before like the actual swamp, and it's versus like Lost Izalith. When you really go through Lost Izalith, not through the back path, it's like, holy shit, this is a giant fucking lava swamp with one enemy type until you find the one little area where there's actually one other enemy type, and you're like, and you're taking damage running through the lava the whole time. It's just like, and then you find out like, oh yeah, dude, that wasn't developed by FromSoft. They passed that off to another studio, and you're like, oh, yep, that okay, everything's clicking. It's making sense now. So that's where I'm like, hey, that's some of the worst content they've made. But I agree though, that area in Dark Souls 3 sucks, except for the PvP. I did so much PvP in that crab area, and it's fucking awesome. That was where I did. It was like 20 hours or more of just, yeah, I'm trying to like grind out these Covenant items.
This was also like 10 years after the game came out.
Yeah, and it would have been even more fun near launch when like, yeah, dude, massive...
that wasn't a PvP area during launch, I don't think.
No, but it has the effect of the Watchdog Legions. Yeah. So even if it wasn't popping on launch, it still would have been fun to, oh yeah, equip that Covenant item and newbies coming through this area. I'm trying to stomp
because the big one on launch was what's the guy after Pontiff Sullivan?
Oh yeah, it's right
Aldrich,
after Pontiff Sullivan. Yeah, it's Aldrich Faithful, and it's that little alcove right there. Yeah. Like imagine if Lost Izalith was like a big PvP hub where it's like, oh, there's a Covenant when you're trying to go through Lost Izalith. You're being invaded by the Pyromancer Covenant or whatever.
There is a Covenant. It's the fucking Witch Covenant.
Yeah, but imagine if it was executed like that. It would be like, oh yeah, that zone kind of sucks, but it has this other aspect to it that makes it okay. Yeah, then it would elevate it so much, honestly. Mm-hmm. That would be so sick. That would be an awesome mod, is like, oh yeah, I'm playing the PC version of Dark Souls 1 and I get to Lost Izalith, and it's like, yeah, there's this new Covenant. Or they wouldn't even need to add the new Covenant. They just used, what's it called? The Daughters of Chaos is what the Covenant's called. Yeah. So yeah, I'm part of the Daughters of Chaos Covenant. I get summoned to Lost Izalith to protect the Bed of Chaos. That would be so fucking sick.
Makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, Liza P, honestly, really, really good game. Shout out Trav for, telling me it was going to be in my top 3. He's right. It probably is. We'll see. Don't get your hopes too high, but mine are high.
You play anything else?
No, that's all I've played this week.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that's it. What about you? What have you been playing?
I've been playing
something that's not Starfield.
Yeah, you're gonna hate this. I'm playing some Fallout 76.
No, wait, I don't hate that at all. That's awesome. Because you mentioned that in Discord. You mentioned Fallout 76. I didn't realize it was because you were playing it.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got like 25 hours in Starfield, and that's all exploration. I haven't been doing like any questing or anything in Starfield. I was thinking about playing it, and I was like, I kind of understand what the exploration is about in Starfield. So if I go play it and do more of that, like I know what I'm gonna get out of it. I don't really have like a strong interest to go back and like do that because like I've done it. I know what it is. It's not particularly fun or interesting. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna boot up Fallout 76. I bought it forever ago on sale for like $2.
You're like, please play the game.
So I was like, I have the game. I'll run it and see, how I like it. So I've been playing that. I'm not like super far. I've got like 6-7 hours in it. It's way better than Starfield.
Dude, people, there are definitely people that are gonna want you dead for saying that, and then there's gonna be other people that are like actual Fallout 76 fans that are like, yes, yes, you got it. Why?
Okay.
Yeah. What makes it?
So
That's crazy, and I want to predict. I'm not going to like. I'm in my head. I'm predicting why because I know a lot about Fallout 76 actually, and I know like a lot about Starfield. So part of me is like, I think you're probably objectively right, but I'm curious what you think.
I'm gonna start with what sucks about Fallout 76 because it's really egregious.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's the fucking like the cash shop stuff.
Gross.
Yeah, it sucks. They have a battle pass. They have a cash shop. And like the cash shop is so annoying. When you go to like build stuff with your base, you can like base build a la Fallout 4, but not quite as detailed as Fallout 4. At least I think.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more like prefabs.
Oh, okay.
Like you can scroll through that menu and it's like, oh, here's all this stuff, and like some of it's like locked because you don't have the plan, locked because like whatever, locked for whatever reasons, and some of them are like locked because you have to fucking buy it in the cash shop.
Gross.
And they're just all in the list in like no order. There's, as far as I can tell, like I haven't looked into it, but there's not like a obvious way. It's like please filter out all the cash shop stuff. But
yeah, no way. They're
not
going to
buy
give you that option.
Yeah. So that's like by far the worst thing about the game is the way that the cash shop stuff is like pushed. They aren't, it's pushed a little bit, but like the way that it's just like mixed in with like the normal game it's so annoying. It's one of the most like obtrusive ways that you can do that kind of content. And so that really sticks out as like, hey, that's a major negative. The stuff in the game that really works, like it's not super surprising. Like I watched the Noah Caldwell Gervais like Fallout video, and I didn't get to Fallout 76, so I don't know what his thoughts on it were. But he talks about Fallout 4 a lot because that's a game that I really like. I have like 300 hours in Fallout 4, even though like, hey, I think that game sucks. There's all sorts of stuff in that game that's not good, but I've played a shit ton of it because there's stuff in the game that's really engaging, like the exploration and like finding those like it's not even it's not even like storytelling in the environment. Like it is, but it's not like, oh, these like narrative chains. Like it's not the logs that you read that like tie everything together. Like that helps like makes things like coherent and like, oh,
helps flesh some stuff out.
Gives
maybe
things a sense of space of like, oh, this is what was going on here. And then you'll find something like halfway across the map that's like, oh yeah, we were getting shipping stuff from these guys, and it's a place you've been before, and you go like, oh neat, like the world is tying itself together.
Gotcha.
And it's like in ways that aren't like necessarily like important, like it's not adding anything to the narrative experience of the game, but it's fleshing out the environment in a way that makes it feel like a place.
I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about last time around like immersion and engagement, and like how like like the highest level of of engagement is immersion, and I think it just adds to that factor where it's like, yeah, it's not necessarily that ties into the core narrative or this or that. It's like, no, it just, when I'm playing the game, I'm putting pieces together and it makes me feel like these spaces are, maybe not real, but you know what I mean? Like it makes them more
a
real.
Place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make it feel real or not. It's just, hey, it's a place, it's connected to itself, like that makes sense. And it just when you recognize things, referencing things that you've like noticed before in the place, it tricks a thing in your brain that's like, oh, this is neat. It makes it feel worthwhile to pay attention and be engaged with the environment because it's not rewarding you, it's just being coherent. It's saying like, hey, it is worthwhile to pay attention to this. Look at the connections that exist. And Fallout 76 has that in fucking spades. That's like the whole game. And like I've been playing it like I've been like loosely questing. Like I've basically been like, okay, I'll walk to the quest markers like for the next quest, but like on the way when I hit like a little point of interest, like I'm going to explore the entire point of interest. I'll go around and I'll see what's going on. Like I'm going to look at everything, engage with everything. And like doing that is just like, oh yeah, there's so much attention paid to the place of everything where it's like, you know, again, it's not like the thing about the Bethesda games is the writing is terrible. They're horrible.
It's so
writers.
funny because I know there are people that think the writing is awesome, and there's probably also people that think like, but the writing in New Vegas is really good, and not realizing that like
that's not a Bethesda game.
Not a Bethesda game. Yeah, so
they're not great writers, but they are very good like place builders. And like that's
they're good with the setting,
yeah, and that's where stuff gets really good. And so you Fallout 76 is entirely that. It's just place building, and it reminds me of like I'm pretty sure when Fallout 76 came out, there were no human NPCs in the game.
Right, yeah, and
that was like a major controversy. They added them, so they're like playing now. There's just like human NPCs in the game. Like they don't have like a lot to do so far, but like playing it through, I see like if this NPC wasn't here and I was doing this exact same thing, it wouldn't fucking matter that they were here or not. And it's interesting because it's like, that would almost be a negative because it's like, well, I can engage with this person and talk to them and get information about the place, and it builds that sense of place. But like the RPG side of things, where it's like talking to a person like an NPC and like, oh, how does this, and it doesn't tie into like a choice and consequence style element at all. And it's like, but who cares? This isn't like an RPG. This game is definitely presenting itself more as like a exploration, like go out, do the stuff, find the logs, have the sense of place built, and just go find stuff and kill stuff and do the quests and find the quests as you're exploring around.
Yeah.
And so when you have like a much looser narrative structure, that benefits Bethesda so much because their writing sucks. And so getting outside of like that really railroaded main questy feeling and just being like, hey, I'm just going to like go
like
and
the
start
exact
doing
opposite
stuff.
of Skyrim, where it's like, there's like a huge main quest.
Having no NPCs is a benefit. And
even the side quests are like, they're pretty majorly important.
Yeah.
So it's like going the opposite direction and being like, no, each thing is really just kind of its own. Yeah.
There might be like, I think there is like a main quest, but again, it's very loose and it's not like, oh, you have to go do the main quest in order to do
it's not you're the fucking hero,
right.
Fucking go save. It's and part of that is that it was designed that way because, well, I was gonna say A and B, but it's really just it was designed that way because it's a multiplayer game, and it's like that doesn't work if you're like you're all the main hero. So it's like, yeah, no, like I think that formula works better in the Fallout universe. Honestly, I've been tempted to try that game, and it's entirely because of the setting. Like you're saying, it's like because that's what it boils down to. It's like, hey, like that sounds like a cool idea. Like, oh, this nuclear fallout happened, and then you and a bunch of friends, people you know, whatever, are like coming out into it. Like, what the fuck happened here? What's going on? I've been underground for 20 years. Shit. Let's fucking make a new life. Like that is such an awesome game concept that like Fallout 76, like the stuff that Todd Howard said when he was announcing Fallout 76, I think are the vision for the game, where it's that's what the goal was, and it was just an execution problem that they failed, and that it sounds like maybe they've improved over time.
I don't know that they've improved it.
Okay.
In fact, some of the stuff they've added might have made it worse.
They fixed a fuck ton of the bugs, which was a huge problem.
But like, the one NPC that I'm thinking of that like it's on a main quest thing that you see fairly early, it's like, man, if this character wasn't in here, it wouldn't be a negative at all. And it might actually be a positive because now I don't have your crappy writing. Like I just have less of that.
Yeah.
There are other things that are a little weird. Like one of the environments that I was exploring, it's like there are a shitload of the like audio logs, like audio tapes. And they're good about it. It's like, you can play them as you're running around, but like, you'll stumble upon another one 30 seconds into one of them playing. And it's like, oh, well, I guess let me know where this is. I'll go run in here really quick and wait for this one to finish, and then I'll go back and pick up the other one.
But that would be like real life.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's
I'm already listening to one. I don't know.
stuff like that. It's like, and I don't know how pervasive that'll be. And like, again, that's a very main quest adjacent area. So I'm like, I wonder if this was like touched up in post.
Oh, got
and so it's like, maybe they made this worse by like trying to add more to it. But I don't know. It's so you compare Fallout 76 to like Starfield, and it's like, okay, Fallout 76 has this. It's basically completely dedicated to catering to that sense of place exploration that Bethesda has really excelled at in all of their games. Right? That's Morrowind, Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout 3.
Are you doing the wrong order?
Doesn't matter. Fallout 4. They're really good about that, like making points of interest interesting and tying into the greater world as a whole. Like there are mining locations in Skyrim that's like, you can find stuff that it ties back. The sense of place gets built. It makes the environment legit.
I have a thing that I know about Starfield in regards to that makes me think the game is absolute dog shit. But
Starfield is like, okay, like Fallout 76 is an extreme in one direction. We're going to strip away narrative and we're going to focus on this one element that, like, if Fallout 76 was a single player game and it didn't have the bullshit of the cash shop and the battle pass, and like there are some things that like the game like chugs a little bit because it's always online. There's 24 players on the server, and so it's like, you're transitioning to a new area. It's not like running like shit, but like it's definitely not smooth. Like my computer
it probably
would run
used
this fine.
to run like shit.
Yeah, probably. Fallout 76 very dedicated to this one element that they have excelled in since like they've been making games. Starfield is like completely inverse of that, where it's like huge emphasis on main narrative. We're going to take all these like detailed exploration things that we have and fucking trash them and go to a procedural style.
Got it.
That sense of place now exists only in certain isolated areas. It's like, well, that doesn't work for your game world then to have like isolated senses of place, because then there is no sense of place for the entire world at large. You have these pockets of whatever. And it just, again, like Bethesda's not good with writing. Their writing isn't interesting. It's not engaging. I really like.
Did you beat the main narrative in Starfield? No. Okay.
No. I didn't really start it. But again, what I've seen of it, which is almost nothing, is that it sucks. That it's the exact same as all the other Bethesda main narratives, where it's like, it's just garbage. It is. It's not good. And it's just so interesting that like you have these two games. Starfield's reception has been mixed, like relative to expectations. I think, right? Overall, it's been positive, but that's a game that realistically should have been critical reception 90+ critic scores.
Yeah, it should have been much higher than it ended up.
So the fact that it ended up mid 80s is like, hey, that's a mixed reception for a game of that.
It's not caliber. It's specifically
it's like pedigree.
Pedigree, yeah. Oh, shout out language.
And so it's like, okay, you have Fallout 76, which is like, people slam that game. It's people do not like Fallout 76.
Dude, people shit on that game, which is why you were like, you're gonna hate this, like, because
like people don't like that game, and it's valid not to. It has some major issues, and like the monetization of it is like really not good for gaming. And
sounds
so,
egregious.
Yeah, it's a major thing to like, hey, that's a hump you have to jump over. The always online element of it is like, hey, that's a hump you have to jump over. There's like. There are some things about the game that aren't super smooth, but the core of what it is, like after I'm done with work and after I'm done, whatever, and I'm ready to relax for a couple hours, like turn off Fallout 76 and going and running around an environment really quick and poking my head around, picking up some junk and like killing some ghouls or whatever is like, hey, this is really relaxing. This is nice to do. I can pay attention to this. I'm engaged with it, but I'm not like, it's not stressful. It's not tense. There's nothing in it that's like totally taking me out of it, like bug wise. Nice. It's like, hey, it's a smooth experience. It's fun to play. That's like, it's so interesting. It has so much potential.
That's the biggest thing to me, is that I think that the game, like even especially on launch, but probably even today, is that like holy shit, like this is where the potential of the Fallout series can lie, and it makes sense that they tried to go in that direction. Sucks that they missed on the execution, but like man, like again, there's an aspect of it that made me want to pick it up, even though I don't like those games. Like, oh, that sounds more fun than just like Fallout 4. It sounds like Fallout 4, but like with friends and also less narrative structure, and yeah, the potential of that series could be super awesome. I actually wonder if we're ever going to get like a Fallout MMO, Elder Scrolls Online equivalent, where it's like, yeah,
Probably
that world, hey, post-nuclear war, full-blown MMO style. I think would probably benefit that series the most.
I think it's so interesting that those Bethesda games become better like the less story you have. And it's like, Jesus.
Writing is just so medium, if not below.
Well, and it, at least in Fallout 76, it looks like it's like, oh, you didn't spend all this time on narrative structure, so you got to flesh out like other things more, and that elevates the experience of playing the game. Really interesting. Like that, I'm really split on the game because like there's stuff in it that sucks. The lack of narrative structure is like a boon for the game, but like that's relative to their other games. It's not relative to all games. You would like there to be like some gripping thing that's like,
right.
Yeah, this is what's going to keep me playing, like as a story. But
it's not in Minecraft,
It's a good point.
Games can be incredibly disengaged on the narrative front and like still build like a really engaging world and setting and sense of space. And Minecraft is a hilarious example because it's like, dude, literally every time you load up a new world, it's a completely different space, but like in something like Fallout 76, it's like, hey, yeah, just back off a little bit and let us play in your world. And I think you end up with like a much more winning formula.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been really enjoying that game.
How many hours do you think you have in it now?
Between 5 and 7.
Okay, not a ton.
Yeah.
What's your like general rating so far?
Like a 4 out of 5. It's a solid game.
It's as good as Lies of P. I mean,
it's a solid game. It's like what you said. There's ideas in there that like, hey, you didn't execute on this perfectly.
Yeah. And that's where it might lose some points.
Where it really stands tall is that it's like a reiteration of like that Fallout 4 exploration formula, but that's basically the whole game. And it's like that works as a whole game. Again, I've hundreds of hours in Fallout 4, and that's most of that is just like, let me hit every single point of interest in the game and go explore it all and see what the game has to offer. And it's like, you do that and it's not bad. That's a decent experience. That's way better than doing the main story of the game, is like just going and exploring the game world. I don't know about this in Fallout 76 yet, but like in Fallout 4, it's like, there's unique rewards to go find in certain areas. You find like a really special gun or something. It's like, this is a one of a kind. You got it because you poked your nose. Like, and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of makes me want to poke my nose in other places and just go see what's up. You stumble upon a quest and you're like, fuck, that's another thing that I can just find when I'm running around.
Right.
I'm going to want to hit up areas and see and try to stumble upon quests and see where like what kind of stuff can happen. And I want to find the unique stuff.
Yeah, and it sounds like Starfield doesn't have, I mean, just from what I know about it, doesn't have that same level of like worthwhile exploration. Like Starfield is the opposite, and like, oh, there's tons of, I think you said the word earlier, like portals or like, I forget how you worded it, but just they're like these little pockets is what you said. Like these pockets you can go to.
Yeah.
And that's what Starfield I think feels like, is like, oh, like I go over here into this little pocket and then I come out and I go into this pocket. But none of them is you're not gonna go around and find like, holy shit, I found this crazy weapon. Or you might find like a thing here or there.
Well, you will, like when you're
There's
in
thousands of planets. So.
But when you're in like one of the the curated areas, right? You're in one of the
Right,
cities, exploring
yes.
those. Like, yeah, there's stuff to find there. It's curated. There are things that are there. There are those elements of that like Fallout style, that exploration that
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
really good at. That they're really good at, but it's in those restricted pockets. They're not connected to each other, and like
Yeah.
there's so much you can do in the game that's like outside of that curated stuff. It's like, I mean, like in terms of like content, in terms of space, the majority of the game is non-curated, and so it's like you start exploring all that kind of. You start exploring in the game,
Got it.
and you're
yeah.
like, well, there's not like a whole lot for me to do here. Like I can
Right.
run around and go like look at the unique planets, and like some of the planets are really cool, really unique wildlife. That's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like like I found one planet in Starfield that was like there were a couple life forms, but like the main one was like this flying like cow bug thing.
What?
This giant like cow bug. They were
Uh,
like non-hostile.
Can you explain just a little bit more cowbug? Like I'm imagining like a fly. No, I'm imagining like a cow with like a fly's wings.
These
Like
giant cow bug things. And
Travis, can you go ahead and look that one up? We'll post it in post.
they're like way higher level than my character at the time. Like they're like level 35. Trav, can you type quieter? They're like level 35, and like I'm like level 15. They're all like flying in the sky. Like they're not moving like fast. They're like cows. They're like cows. They're like just like, you know, like herding and like very slowly, if
They're
at all,
hurting.
moving.
They're like they're going around like moo.
You shoot one of them, and like they all fucking aggro on you, but they're super slow. They die fast, and they're high level. And I just sat there and just started
Farmed 'em?
murdering them all,
farming cows, dude.
and just like leveled up a ton. And I've never seen another animal like that in Starfield. I've landed on.
Yeah, like that aspect of it is probably fun.
That's like a cool part. It's like you land on a planet and you see something. You're like, I haven't seen anything like this before.
So, the one thing I know, I shouldn't say the one thing that I know about Starfield is like there are planets that you can go to where like I heard this guy explain that he went to this one planet and found it was like an abandoned mining facility, and as he explored down into the mine, he found like these alien skulls like that they had uncovered in the mines, and that it kind of told the story of like what happened with this mine, where like, oh, they were mining, they started finding like this alien life, it like killed people, whatever, and then it like, oh, like, you know, they had to bail or whatever. And so there's like this cool amount of like world building and environmental storytelling
Yeah,
that's going
find
on.
the mine again.
Yeah, and then you find that exact same mine on another planet and another one, and you're like, oh. And so I heard that, and I assumed there isn't a single unique thing in the fucking video game, and I'm not playing that.
There's tons of unique stuff in the
How do
video
you know?
game. There are planets that have unique.
If it's probably curated though.
Yes.
Okay.
There are planets that they've like designated, I think, as like,
oh, this
is a planet
here.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're all curated to some extent.
Yeah, it's not like completely procedural, but
Right.
there is a level of procedural filling out of the content that is not.
But they've
curated,
marked like a decent chunk of the planets, like maybe 10% of them.
which is where I would just be like, okay, then get rid of everything else. That's my argument for Starfield is I don't want 1,000 planets. Give me like 50 planets, like way less, but like, yeah, all of them are cool, and like I might give that game a try, because I don't know which planets. That's you. I don't know which planets are gonna be worth exploring or not, and just the idea that there are some that aren't, I think is just like, I'm out. And the fact that it's probably somewhere nearing 1,000 planets that are just like not worth it. Like it's like, yeah, like out of our 900 planets, like, or out of our 1,000 planets, there's 900 that are just like, yeah, like those are the copy paste ones. Or even if it's 50-50, even if 50% of the planets are like, dude, we handcrafted a bunch of these events to happen on 500.
Well, and a lot of them, it's not handcrafted events. It's like
or
handcrafted
things.
Environments is mostly what it is. But a lot of like the like the mining stations, the civilian outposts, the whatever. That's all copy pasted ad infinitum. Like that's
Yeah, and I think that's what turns me off with that game. And it sounds like, yeah, with like a Fallout, like would do like
it just robs that game studio of the thing that they're singularly best at. And like,
Yeah.
you can find it again in pockets in those really curated areas, but they're all like in cities. They're not like, it's not the same feeling of, hey, I'm exploring Fallout or I'm exploring Skyrim and
it's
I'm
this world
walking
that's
from
been
city
destroyed
to city.
and I'm going. Yeah.
It's a totally different vibe.
Interesting.
And it's really interesting. I think Fallout 76 is way better than Starfield. Fallout 76 might be the best game Bethesda has ever made.
Good Lord. That's sick. I'm gonna agree with you just based on like my thoughts, not even having played the game. That like, yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, it's
think so.
scuffed. That's the worst part about it. But
Yeah, sure.
all their games are scuffed. So.
Dark Souls is scuffed.
Yeah.
Ultimate game of all time. What do they call it? Yeah.
Scuffed.
Well, I think now's probably a good time for a little break. We'll refill our drinks. We will convene, and when we get back, we'll be taking some questions from chat or chattioli.
Break.
What is that?
Break. Christ.
Ah, dude, that fucking reeks, dude. It's fucking smelly.
That's how you're playing us in.
Welcome back to the Water Level Pod. We've got some questions from our audience, from chat, and we're gonna have our good old friend Travioli, Travacado, read us the questions from chat. Trav, what you got?
Question number 1. What is it?
Look, here's the thing, Trav. We can't hear you on the pod.
Yeah, how do we make this work?
Actually, Trav, play a sound effect real quick. Big scuff. Jesus Christ. Trav, you don't work. I'll fix it. Give me 1 second. Here, ready? I'm gonna be right up in the. I'm fixing it. It's all good.
Borked.
It's all good.
All right.
It's all good. Yeah, look, it's not finding it. There we go. All right, Trav, say something now.
Something now.
Oh, we got Travis on the call.
Finally.
We missed out on his sound effects earlier, which is probably a good thing.
All broken.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, but
they
luckily,
couldn't hear your giant, like, loud typing, your giant hands smashing your
yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah. So that wasn't working. But hey, we got it fixed. I'll make sure to test that next time. So, Trav, we got you on the call. What questions you got?
I've always wanted to know if you guys would be friends with Goku.
Jesus.
Got
No,
an answer?
no, I wouldn't.
Got a reason?
He's like too into like fighting and stuff. I'm not really into that.
I like that answer. He is violent.
He's an extremely violent person. Like he's really into it. It's probably the thing he likes more than anything.
He's a grown man. He gets into fights nonstop.
And he could easily kill me. It's just very intimidating.
Right, yeah, you make him upset. He's going to fuck you up.
I'm honestly afraid. I think that, maybe they could wish me back with the Dragon Balls or whatever. But,
is there any character from Dragon Ball Z that you're like, yeah, I would be friends with them?
Yeah, Gohan seems chill. He's cool.
He could also kill you, though.
Yeah, but he's like
way more prone to emotional outbursts.
Yeah, but he's a dweeb,
Way scarier than Goku.
Sounds just like me is the thing.
No,
Dweeb
I'd be friends
with emotional
with, like,
outbursts.
Bulma or something.
Okay. How old of Bulma?
Listen, I didn't say launch. I could have gone there.
No, but you want to be friends with 40, 50-year-old Bulma or Dragon Ball Bulma? Nice 17.
Dragon Ball Bulma.
See, yeah, there it is. I don't know how old she is. She's probably like,
Whatever.
we'll go with 18.
Yeah. All right, next question.
Yeah, what else you got, Trav?
Are you gonna play Diablo 4 Season 2?
D4 Season 2. D4 Season 0 was kind of a letdown. And
That makes sense, though. It's season 0.
D4's
Big
Season
bagel.
1 didn't play, right?
What?
I'm sitting on that.
Oh, you didn't play it. I thought you were saying it didn't play.
Didn't play.
Got it.
I was the...
Well, you said season 1 didn't play.
Season 1, pause, didn't play. That's like there was an I in there.
I'll fix that one in post.
All right.
I
I've got the...
That's way too long. That fucking sound effect needs to be like half of the length. Just like...
I've got that... the ultimate pass, the ultimate battle pass. So I've got a battle pass for whatever season that you want to cash in on.
That's how that works? Then I have that too, yeah.
I'm like, it's season 2, but I want to
wait
use
till
it on
the last one, I guess.
I'm probably not going to play that game again till like season 15 and wait till the game's dying and they've got all the content in there. You can go in and play it when it's like decent.
Yeah, I might never play it again.
Yeah. No on season 2.
I thought they were already on season 4, so yeah, I'm out. I'm out of the loop. I don't know what's going on.
Game came out like 4 months ago.
Yeah, and season 1 came out pretty fast. Season 2 came out pretty fast after that. I'm like, dude, I thought they were rolling.
Season 2's not out yet.
They're still in the season of the Malignant?
Is that what it's called?
That was the first one. They already announced the second one like a while back.
A couple weeks
Trav,
ago, maybe.
are they just going into season 2 right now? You're sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not playing. No chance. I got other games to play. I got to play all the Assassin's Creed games. We'll get to that later.
Fuck Diablo 4 Season 2. Season 3, you don't know. But Season 2, fuck you. What's next?
What are you having for lunch?
Ooh, man.
Got an answer?
I think I want Chipotle.
Is that what you're going to have? Like, you think you want it?
I'm going to eat whatever I want. If I fucking say I want Chipotle, I'm getting Chipotle.
You didn't say I want Chipotle.
No, but you need to understand.
I think I want Chipotle. Like, what does that mean? Are you getting Chipotle?
Yes, that's what that means. I think I want Chipotle. Make the leap. I'm getting it. I'm going to order it the moment that this pod is over.
I'm going out to lunch with my mom, but I don't know where.
Oh my God.
So I don't know what I'm getting.
Do you at least know what side of town?
Yeah, her side.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a long
so John's
day.
got to be doing some driving today.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not talking about golf. What
Next
else we
question.
got? What next
Yeah,
question?
What's the worst game you played that you love?
I got a good answer for this one.
All time?
All time.
Worst game that you've played that you've loved. What do you mean all time? Like that you loved all time? Worst game? What the fuck are you asking?
Of all time. Like, what's the worst game that you've ever played or this year? I was expecting him to add on this year or something, but he didn't. So I'm like, oh, so all time. Okay.
Yeah, I felt like the lack of a
that was me.
of
That was my
time.
realization. He means all time. Okay.
Yeah, that was the question.
Yeah.
Mine's Too Human.
Oh yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I love that game.
Dude, you could talk so much about that game.
Too Human is so fun. That game is horrible. Oh my god, that game's so bad. I forget when it came out. It was like early Xbox 360, I want to say.
Yeah, it was definitely Xbox 360.
It was Xbox 360, but I think it was like a really early title in there. It was one of the earlier like Xbox Live titles, I want to say.
I just watched a video on like the entire history of that game recently. And they were pitching that game and hyping it up to be like the next phase of RPG.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't realize that how much hype that game had around it before its release, so that like its failure was even more of a big deal than I realized.
Yeah.
Isn't that it wasn't it made by like a pretty decent like studio
And
or
I'm pretty sure it put them out of business.
and it was like people that were famous for working on other games. Like this was their dream game. And that they were like seasoned game dev vets.
I think that game's great. You
Too
can
bad.
only play it solo as a single class.
Yeah, one of the classes
Yeah,
is
I
playable
think
and the
there's,
other
like,
ones are all
4.
fucked.
I luckily picked the playable one as my first one and like played the game and was like, hey, that game was pretty fun. That was a decent game. I like you beat the game, you go into like a new game plus-esque thing and like higher tier gear drops. I was like doing that. Like I was enjoying the game beyond just beating it. I was like doing everything and like just I kept playing the game. And I had friends who had bought it and they fucking hated it. Because it's like, yeah, somebody tried to play the gunslinger and you get to certain bosses and it's like, yeah, you die in 2 hits. You don't do
you're
damage.
fucked.
Yeah, you can't. What are you supposed to do? Like,
And the death animation is like fucking like a whole ass cutscene, isn't it?
yeah, oh, it's so long. And you have classes like the gunslinger, I think, was like a juggler class. Like, think like Devil May Cry, like pistols.
Okay,
like, yeah,
okay.
I was supposed to keep you up in the air. And you get bosses that's like, yeah, you can't juggle bosses sometimes. And it's like,
And
that's
it's
your
like,
whole kit.
that's my
is like,
thing.
yeah, if you can't do that, you can't do damage.
That's so funny.
And it's like, oh yeah, your class is just garbage for this. So that game has major issues. It's objectively not a good game, like panned universally. It's like
oh yeah.
pretty sure it's like a 4 out of 10, like critic score. Like it's not received
That's not
well.
that bad. A 2 out of 5 is I might play that.
I love that game. I think it's great. That's my favorite worst game I've ever played.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of what mine might be.
What about Resident Evil 1?
Yeah, I thought something like that was coming. I'm gonna go with. Oh, nice sound effect. That's a decent one. I'm gonna go with probably Evil Within. Played that this year.
Like a 7.5 out of 10.
That game is dog shit. It's a 2 out of 5. It's so bad. Couldn't believe how bad it is. I actually don't think it is. I think its score is probably closer to a 6, like a 60% on Metacritic. I think it's lower than that. I think it's closer to a 2 out of 5 type game. But it's kind of good, man. I enjoyed it enough to beat the whole fucking game, and man, it was hard.
It's worth mentioning that you don't bother with a lot of like bad games.
I really struggle with dude, if a game is like a 3 out of 5, like I probably hate it. I'm really like not engaged, it's kind of fun. It had enough survival horror mechanics to like, hey, I mean, you're not really pulling these off, but I see what you're trying to do, and so I'm here for it. That game took me like weeks to beat though, because I could only play it for like an hour at a time before I was just like, I'm hurting. I need to just like take a break. So yeah, probably that.
Next up,
Yeah, we got any other questions?
Yeah, who did Gondor call for aid?
yeah, they lit all the fires.
I
Yeah,
don't watch those movies.
Yeah, remember that it's the scene and they're going across the land and they see the beacons are lit. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like the beacons are lit. And they
Oh, I thought it
start-
was we're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
start lighting all the beacons.
Yeah, but
Next
who
up.
did they call for aid?
Next question.
I have none.
All right, well that'll do it for our questions from the audience segment. Thank
Thanks,
you,
chat.
Trav.
Thanks,
for-
chat.
Yeah, thanks, chat, for providing these wonderful questions today. There are times earlier in this episode where we were laughing at sound effects that weren't fucking playing on the audio.
Hilarious.
I'm debating if I'm gonna add them in post, and then this segment will be like, oh, they added it in post. Oh, that's funny.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I like.
It'll
that
all
idea.
come full circle if I add them in post, and even the part where I'm like fucking with the camera, it'll be like, oh, what was that all about? Oh, that it wasn't working, but they fixed it. Yeah.
Well, and like they'll see you fucking with the camera, and they'll be like, "What was that all about?" And they won't have the answer.
Yeah, they won't have
now.
the context until right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way to do it. I probably won't make those edits. It sounds like
Win some, you lose some. It'll still come from full circle because they'll be like, "What the fuck were they laughing at?" And then they'll be like,
right. Oh, so now either way we do it,
that's good.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a problem solver. That's what I like to do. The other thing I am is an absolute freak. I watched a video the other day. This was probably 2 days ago. That was like Assassin's Creed Mirage, not recommended. And I started watching it, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to play this, but I kind of want to go back and play all the Assassin's Creed games, and then this one.
Like when you say play all the Assassin's Creed games, are you like, I'm gonna play the ones starting from the ones I haven't played yet?
Nope, I'm all of them. I'm gonna play
replay
AC 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3, Black Flag, all the way up till Mirage. Play Mirage. Platinum all of them. Get all the achievements. 100% those games. Dude, I would love to do that. It sounds sick.
Why would you love to do that?
Like fucked up.
It's like the Assassin's Creed games have like all the terrible flag.
They have so much bullshit. I've heard that Valhalla is just like full of bloat and just like, dude, it's hundreds of hours of bullshit to do, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like torturing myself a little bit sometimes, What made me think about it was just like, hey, I haven't engaged in that series since Assassin's Creed 3. I tried playing Assassin's Creed 3 and was just like, holy shit, I'm not into these games. But I've matured as a person. Maybe I could go back and be like, oh, the ones I didn't play, I like now. But then I was like, but I kind of just want to play the ones I've also played, so I may as well start all the way back at 1 and play them. It just sounds like an interesting little
it doesn't sound interesting at all.
Retrospective to be able to go back and see what those games are like now.
Like here's the thing.
Yeah.
Those games aren't short, right?
1 is decently short,
Not if you're getting every single collectible in the game.
There's only one collectible in Assassin's Creed 1, it's the flags.
Yeah.
And it's short. I've done it.
Those games aren't short.
Did they remaster 1 ever? Did they ever?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I'd probably skip that one.
I
know they came out with the Ezio Auditore collection.
And they're all like the same.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do it, but it sounds awesome. Let me know in the comments below if you think I should replay and play all the Assassin's Creed games over again. I mean, it's hard to tell for a second whether it's the clap sound or the typing. Yeah. I'm like, oh. You played like Black Flag. You played a handful of the Assassin's Creed games, like here and
there. Black Flag's the last one I played.
Okay, it's not that many.
I played 1, 2, and Black Flag.
You played Brotherhood.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, Brotherhood, and Black Flag.
I tried the first Origins game. Was it just called Assassin's Creed Origins?
I didn't know that was a game.
It's the Egypt one, or I want to say it's called Assassin's Creed Origins. It's the one before
I know the
Odyssey.
Egypt one. Is it called Origins?
I think so. And it's the one before Odyssey.
Odyssey's Greece.
Yeah, and then Valhalla. I tried that one, and I was so turned off by the UI that I turned the game off. That's all it took for me to stop playing that game. The thing is that UI is now present in every fucking video game. It makes me not want to be alive, and it's that, hey, we built this game on PCs, and so when we go to we need to make it work for console, instead of developing a system that can tell, oh, well, this button is below this one and this one's below this one, that you're indexing all the buttons and which directions they are so that you can use an analog stick to pop between them or arrow keys. They just give you a fucking cursor on the screen that I have to control with an analog stick. And I think that is one of the worst. What the fuck, dude? That is one of the worst fucking trends in gaming, is that console games just like, oh yeah, here's a cursor to use in our menus. Control it with your left analog stick. It's horrible. I think it's one of the worst changes in modern gaming. Right alongside holding buttons for confirmations. I fucking hate.
No, that's the worst trend in modern gaming.
It's so awful. Just give me a pop-up box. This is like, are you sure? And then I have to click X again.
Yeah, double clicking is way better.
Yeah, double click is way better. Holding button is like, it's got to just be like an accessibility thing.
There
right?
are
Like,
occasions, like, okay, so in Fallout 76, when you're looting a item, like food or drink, you can either tap X to loot it instantly, or I guess A. I'm playing on Xbox, but or hold it and you'll just eat it straight without having to put it in your inventory.
that's
You can eat it
different. That's
So it's
not
like,
menu.
There's
bullshit.
a reason
Yeah.
for hey, we're using the same button in the exact same situation. There's a contextual difference between tapping it and holding it.
Right. Yeah.
Versus the way that games use
Especially
it. Especially
in gameplay, or for example, like, hey, if you have a menu option and I can either tap X, in the menu to select it, or I can hold X and then that'll multi-select, and now I can tap. Like, hey, holding buttons is not a problem. Let's get that straight. Holding a button for some sort of action in UI, software, video games, whatever, is totally fine. It's just that, dude, people use it egregiously for hey, I'm gonna level up this stat or whatever, and it's like, yeah, let me click on it, and it's like, no, you click on it and you see the little icon. We'll zoom in on this later. The little icon, and it goes, ooh, because you clicked on it instead of tapping, and so you don't even realize at first that oh, that didn't work. Your brain has to do this thing where
I have to hold it.
and I can't comprehend it. Can some game developer who works on fucking Horizon Forbidden West or one of those garbage games, please comment below and just be like, yeah, this is why we do that trash. It's because our bosses make us do it because they think it's important, and we've done UX testing. It doesn't fucking pass. We've tried everything we can to not do it, and this is why it's happening. Yeah, please let me know.
I don't know why it happens.
What?
I don't know why it happens.
Yeah, it's insane to me. That, and yeah, using your cursor. The cursor thing, I think I know is that, yeah, because when you're developing a game on PC and you're playing with, and you're using your mouse, you're clicking around. That's how they're doing all their development. And then they're like, oh, we need to make this work on PlayStation. Okay, so then we're just gonna put a circle on the screen with a dot in the middle, and then that's your cursor, and then you control that instead. Yeah, it's just an easy out. It sucks, dude.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to 100% it, is 143 hours.
One in the series.
I'm out. That's how long I was hoping to spend playing the whole series.
Valhalla is 144 hours.
Oh my god, it's longer? Wait, was it more or less?
Which one? Yeah, which one? Oh, repeat the numbers.
We'll
put a table
for
on the
Odyssey, 144 for Valhalla.
1 hour more?
144 is bigger than 143.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
The other thing we were talking about was this is not a good transition. The other thing we were talking about is the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's talk about that. The next Switch. Dude, why do you give me this power? You're the one that should do the transitions.
What do you mean you just
back
started
up.
doing it?
Yeah, let's back up. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to play those Assassin's Creed games.
What do you guys think about the Nintendo Switch 2?
Shit.
When do you guys think that's coming out? Nintendo Switch 2 next year, 2 years?
I actually think they might announce it this holiday.
Why would they announce it this holiday season when
And
they're
then
going to
not-
sell a
and
shit
then not
ton of
release
Switches? Why the fuck would they announce it and cannibalize their own sales? It's the worst time to announce it. They would announce it right after the holiday season, if anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with they're gonna announce it just right before Christmas, after they've already sold a bunch.
Christmas Day.
Yeah, Christmas Day. Everyone's like, "What the fuck?" Tons of returns. No, I don't know, because it makes me wonder. Okay, we're too close to the holiday season. It's not coming out this year, right?
For sure not this
Zero
year.
chance.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably next year though. I would think that it's coming out next year.
Rumors have been heating up about it. Like there's been a lot in the news.
That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Is like, oh, like that people are starting to kind of be like, hey, that's coming.
I want to say there's been reports that people have dev kits.
Yes. Also, apparently, Nintendo has said that they're not making another game in the Breath of the Wild engine. So that leads me to believe that they are working.
We argued about this at one point, didn't we?
We might have talked about it, but they just came out.
And I said they were done, and you said they were going to do spinoffs.
Yeah, so I'm wrong, and
Yeah,
they basically come out and said we're done with that Breath of the Wild engine like formula stuff. We're moving on, and that leads me to believe that, like, oh, they're working on the next Zelda game in a new engine for the next generation of hardware.
I don't know that it'll launch in time to be.
No, it might not be a launch title, but that we're developing for that next generation of hardware.
Okay, so let's say Switch 2 comes out
And
next
end
year,
of next year, holiday season,
possibly
or something.
year after.
Yeah.
Next year or two. What's the launch title?
What a good transition. It's gonna be Super Mario Maker 3D. That's what I think that your thoughts on that the existence of that game are probably spot on.
It's an off-cited like wish item that people have said for the next Mario Maker.
Yes.
We have Mario Maker 1, Mario Maker 2 is successful and has basically everything that you can do with the 2D Mario. I guess outside of like it doesn't have the like the new Super Mario like style at 2.5D, like that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's still room to incorporate that
But
somehow
that would be such a great, it would be an easier addition
to a 3D game.
to a 3D. Yeah. And like, hey, if you're already gonna go that 3D direction, like, yeah, like, and like have levels where there's parts where you're 2.5D and then parts where you're fucking first person Mario running around. I think it's the ideal time on the Switch 2. I am curious like what the Switch 2 is gonna entail. I'd be really surprised if it's anything drastically different than the Switch, but Nintendo has just been like every console they make is like pretty drastically different than the one before. And the closest one would be like, oh, the Wii to the Wii U and then the Wii U to the Switch, I guess. There's some similarities
Nintendo
there.
to Super Nintendo, pretty similar.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But that was also 30 years
Yeah, that was
ago.
a long time ago. And it's called the Super Nintendo. So I wonder if they'll call it the Super Switch. That would be sick.
Yeah, I don't like Switch 2 as a name.
Switch 2 sucks.
I wonder if they'll do it because of the Wii U. And they're like, fuck it, we'll just call it Switch 2 so everybody knows it's the second one.
Yeah, they don't want to create that confusion again
Right.
where, oh, it's a peripheral or whatever. Yeah.
Whereas you call it Super Switch, people are like, well, is that like the Switch OLED again? Like
The Super Nintendo Switch sounds so awesome, though. I would buy a Super Nintendo Switch.
that was the full name they went with, and it said it like on the
Yeah,
box.
like the Super Nintendo Switch. Like, yeah.
That sounds sick.
Like the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Yeah. Like throwback. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mario Maker 3D would be an interesting launch title.
Fully VR compatible, right?
Well, that is like a question of like what do you expect out of the Switch 2 is the Super Nintendo Switch is like, hey, okay, it's definitely going to be a hardware upgrade because, I mean, the Switch...
I think that'll be the main thing, though, really.
You think it's going to be the Switch again, but just like, yeah, they juiced up the hardware a bunch.
I think
they're not going to hop on the VR train that's starting to blow up a little bit.
I think if there is anything like that, it'll be akin to the PlayStation VR where like, hey, it's not built into the console, but if we are going to go with that, it's a peripheral, yeah.
Do you think they'll use Hall Effect joysticks?
I don't know what that is. What the fuck are you talking about?
The PS3 joysticks, don't drift because they're Hall effect.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
PS3?
These 3 controllers don't drift. So basically, instead of using the potentiometers that they use in every modern joystick,
Uh-huh.
what?
Oh, you missed me rip ass into my mic?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the PS3 controllers use Hall effect, the Hall effect, which is like a magnetic field that gets generated. So there's no friction that occurs with the joystick as you move it, like with a thing,
Mhm.
and so it doesn't like degrade over time, and so you never
Interesting.
end up with like joystick drift.
No, I don't think they're going to do that. I think that
What a
I don't
shame.
think any of that matters.
They got sued. I'm just,
Yeah. They don't give a shit.
they don't.
No. They're going to do whatever is going to make them the most money. So, hey, if that is I don't think that the suit was a big enough hit. I think they're like, yeah, bro, we're still making fucking Joy-Cons with drift, man.
It's too bad.
I would be surprised if there's a VR thing, but I would love it for Nintendo to jump into that space. I just don't think they would, because VR is so much more of like an experience based around like immersion, and Nintendo is such like, they feel very disconnected from that. They're so much more about play, and I think VR really is like a step beyond like that Nintendo brand of like family fun.
So you're thinking it's essentially the same console, roughly the same size, hardware upgrade.
Yeah, I'm basically expecting like a Super Switch OLED kind of thing. Like they already have the Switch 2. It's the Switch 1.5. It's like, yeah.
Well, there's no
a
hardware
better Switch.
upgrades with that, right?
I thought there was. I mean, there's the OLED screen, but I also thought that
it was
there
just an OLED screen.
Oh, that's all.
That's what I thought.
But yeah, I would expect like, yeah, just.
Do you think Mario Maker 3D is the launch title?
No, I think it's Mario 3D and the next Mario Odyssey, or like whatever, the next big Mario.
It's been a while since the last like major Mario
that
game.
came out around the launch of the Switch.
It would
right?
be so awesome to release it side by side with Mario Maker 3D, and it's like,
Yeah.
here's the new 3D Mario,
and here's
all
a level
the
editor.
assets
and,
are
like,
in
yes,
Mario
yeah.
Maker 3D.
I think that would be ideal. That would interest me. I mean, my Switch is old. I would be interested in getting a new Switch console. I also think that they've put so much effort into like their Switch Online, and that whole offering, like everyone's doing now with like, oh, you subscribe and you get games, you get whatever. I expect that it's not going to be a leap that's like, oh, I'm going to be able to play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on the next Switch. You know what I mean? But it's going to be fully backwards compatible with all the stuff that they've been setting up. I think game consoles now are getting to the point where like, or game console developers have gotten to the point now where they realize the importance of like that like long-term offering and keeping people in your ecosystem so much that like, I would be blown away if they move away from cartridges and they go to discs, or if they, it's not like a handheld thing that I can bring places. I'd be baffled if they move away from that, because I think it's such a hit, and it's the best part about having a Switch. I'm tempted to get the PlayStation Portal thing just because I'm like, damn, I would love to play my PlayStation on the couch while watching, a show out of the corner of my eye, like, instead of like, oh yeah, let me post up at my fucking desk or my TV or whatever and like game. I love being able to just lay back and game, and like, hey, I have like, the PlayStation the app, so you can like play on your phone with a controller, but being able to like with the Switch, like literally just, oh, let me take that off the dock and go over here. The Steam Deck. I do think that that's such an important part of gaming, is like getting people off their setups and like, hey, move around your house, like get out of your man cave or your little kid den or whatever the hell, and play your game, wherever. I think
this is my argument for Switch 2 will have VR.
Okay.
And that's that Metroid Prime 5 is going to be a launch title.
That alone is at least something. I can understand that.
It's going to be VR. You're going to have the Joy-Con. That's going to be your gun. And you're going to be able to move it around and, click it and shoot. And you're going to have some type of visor thing to give you the visuals of the game. And Metroid Prime 5 is going to be a VR game. And that's why it hasn't come out. And that's why it's been delayed so much.
That's why it's not like, oh, here's the next Switch. Like, it's a hardware upgrade. It's like, no, like, we're developing, like, a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, what's interesting to me about that is that it is so very Nintendo to be like, hey, here's, like, a game console that's entirely VR focused. Like, they did with the Wii, where it's like, the Wii was... Dude, like, so unique. Hasn't really been a console like it since. Even the Wii U, it's like, hey, we stepped away from, like, the Wiimote, and you have, like, this tablet thing now.
Switch is definitely a happy middle ground between, like, traditional-esque
Yes.
console experience and the gimmick of, like, yeah, you
I
have the
I
Joy-Con
honestly think the
stuff.
Switch is the safest thing Nintendo has made in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, console-wise. Which explains, like, its, you know, its sales, you know, that, like, yeah, dude, it's that console is nutty. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to release something insano, like, step forward like that. Like, oh, hey, we thought PlayStation was kind of doing it with their thing, and they kind of weren't. You know, they're just dipping their toes in. Nintendo was like, fuck it, we're diving balls deep into fucking VR.
Yeah.
That sounds sick.
That's what I think it's gonna be.
Imagine like the next Super Mario game is like a VR title. They're like, yeah, dude, you're fucking doing
Well, even
backwards long jumps,
so,
fucking
like
in VR.
think about like trying to build a Mario Maker 3D level, and it's like, hey,
it sounds sick to be like in first person, like, oh, okay, there's gonna be a block here, and then there's gonna be this here, and blah blah blah, you know, and then like you like step back,
you can
and like
zoom out, and
oh
it's like,
my
yeah,
God.
it's in a VR
I mean,
experience. You
it's
can
what
crane
made-
your head and see stuff.
That's what made PlayStation Dreams like kind of cool, was like doing the dreams in VR and being able to like, oh, I'm like creating my 3D models,
Right.
and I'm making levels, and I can zoom like that environment for like, yeah, like level creation. I mean, honestly, even game dev sounds sick to do like in VR, like you're coding and you're like putting together your levels. Sounds awesome. But yeah, that sounds like such a Nintendo thing to do. Is
Well, and it's also like, I love it from the concept of like, people have been kind of anticipating that Mario Maker 3 might be Mario Maker 3D, and people have been
It's like
asking for it.
Super Mario Maker
And
3D.
it's like, gotcha,
Yeah.
the 3D thing isn't the thing, it's the VR thing.
It's VR. Yeah, there's 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can make whatever Mario level you want. It actually sounds sick.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I honestly think that there's a huge potential in VR games for non-first person games. Like, I mean, obviously we've seen some like with what's the mouse one on PlayStation?
Oh, Ratatouille.
No, that's not right. But
Yeah, but the one you're in the
yeah,
forest.
yeah. You're the little mouse guy. But you're not playing first person mouse. You're like you're playing in first person, and you're controlling the mouse down on the ground. I think that VR, you know, yes, there's an obvious specialty with VR of playing first person games, and you are the character. But I also really like the idea of like VR in the sense that like it's just a new way of controlling a third person camera, you know. And like just like a different way of like having that viewport. And I think that could work for something like, you know, Super Mario Maker. You know, they have that 2.5D aesthetic where you're like, oh, I'm watching from above, like I'm God. And like, yeah, imagine that in VR, and like you're controlling your Mario, but you can also look over to the side and like kind of like look around.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I'm controlling this little Mario, but I'm up here. You're playing as the Lakitu.
Right.
You know? Damn. I'm in for it. I'm probably buying that if that comes out. And I didn't buy Super Mario Maker 2 for years after it came out. Like I did not jump on that train. But if that was Super Mario Maker 3, yeah, I'm day one.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah, it sounds sick. Let us know what you think in the comments below.
Jeez.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Hit that bell icon.
This pod is brought to you by, I don't know, what are
Doritos.
Doritos.
This episode. Next episode, Captain Crunch. You think this one's worse than the last one?
Yeah.
I agree. Let us know in the...
I'm a real boy.
Liza P reference? I mean... yeah, what was the other thing we were going to talk about?
Call of Duty?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Another
I mean,
one of those?
here's the thing. I would actually play Call of Duty VR as well. That also sounds sick. But yeah, we watched a little bit of the Modern Warfare 3 remake. It's not even a remake because it's like it's so fucked up what they're doing with that brand. Where it's like, yeah, they're calling it Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, but it's also just Warzone 1, but like a new season, and it's also not a remake of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. It's a remake of Modern Warfare 2 because it's got the fucking scene from Modern Warfare, the original Modern Warfare 2, where you shoot up the fucking airport, and it's got the maps from Modern Warfare 2. They specifically like, oh look, we brought back High Rise, we brought back the fucking the tiny little desert map where there's like the factory thing in the middle, and it's like small, and I'm like, it makes it really hard to follow.
It's the perfect place to jump in. They kept saying that during the thing. They're like, there's never been a better time to start Call of Duty. I'm like, what? It couldn't, like, there's never a bad time to start playing Call of Duty because it doesn't fucking
because
matter.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's never, and so to that argument, hey, there's never been a better time. Yeah, because they're all the same. So there's never been a better.
If you were gonna say there are any differences, this is by far the worst time. Like, it's so confusing.
The best time to hop into Call of Duty ever was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
That was the best time to, hey, you're getting into the series. Now is the time because it's going to be like this for the next fucking 15 years.
I would say, like, yeah, that's definitely the best.
That's when I got into it.
Yeah,
I mean, I played Call of Duty 3, but I was like, I'm not into this.
Modern Warfare was the zeitgeist of
Yeah.
Call of Duty. That it was. That's when it became a thing.
Yes.
And then what? When would the next best time to jump in be? Like,
I mean, I love
Blackout?
Advanced Warfare. Or you're talking about Black Ops?
no, Blackout.
Oh, you're talking about the
pre-Warzone.
pre-Warzone Battle Royale.
Yeah,
That's what that was called, Blackout?
is that the next best time to?
I don't know, man.
Because then it's
I
like
think
you get
that
the
they're
Battle
right.
Royale
There's no better
experience.
time because, dude, it's all the same. We're making the same game. Just play whenever. It really now is the best. There's no. They're not saying now is the best time. They're saying like, yeah, there's no better time. It's like, yeah, 'cause, dude, fucking next week it's gonna be the same thing. 2 years from now, it's gonna be the same.
Like, yeah, the best time to start saving for retirement is today.
Yeah, like literally whenever.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
stupid.
but that said, it's like, well, no, but like the day before would have been better.
I
though.
thought it was shocking. Did they have any new maps? Like, did they say that there are
They
any
didn't.
new maps?
I mean, I kind of
All the
tuned
maps
out.
they showed were
They showed a bunch of past
only
ones.
previous maps. I don't know if there's any
I
new
bet
ones.
there are some new ones just because I'd be surprised. There have been in Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. So I'd be surprised if there aren't new ones. But like
I wonder how much
they
of that,
made it a point to show like, look at all the shit we're bringing back.
I wonder how much of that is like, okay, you have Call of Duty. It's an iterative formula. It's the same game that's you've been releasing for 20 years. In terms of like actual map design, there's not a whole lot you can do past a certain point. Like Call of Duty 4, World of War, whatever. You get to a point where you've released so many Call of Duties, you're like 10 deep. Each game has 15, 20
You
maps.
may as well go back to the ones that have
Because
worked to the best.
You have
yeah.
hundreds of maps. You've got hundreds of layouts. You know what works.
Genuinely
You're not going
hundreds.
to release like the same map with a reskin. You might as well just release the old map.
Yeah.
Because people like it and it's out.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And if you're a new player, then okay, it's just
it's
a good
new
map.
to you. Yeah. Part of me is like I hate that like how much they recycle old maps because like even like Call of Duties newer ones often do that. They'll bring in old maps that are like this isn't really related.
Yeah,
But-
even ones where it's like they brought back Nuketown like 6 times now.
Right.
You know, it's like they just do that.
But it's also like, there can't be that many map ideas that actually work in your structure of game.
Yeah.
That like,
Yeah.
hey, the fact that you've landed on some of them, fuck it, you might as well reuse them forever.
Some of the Call of Duty maps, especially the ones they were showing off, like we were talking on the call, was like, oh yeah, they brought back High Rise. It's like,
It's a great map.
yeah, that's a really great map. You got like the underground areas that keep you out of the sniper fire, but like are tighter quarters and like, a little bit sketchier. But then, yeah, you can also mid-range sniper fire across the map. There was like, I remember in Modern Warfare 2, the original, it was like there were these like weird upper places you could kind of like
Platform too.
like platform to get into, and it was like Yeah, there's some great maps. Another great one was the Modern Warfare 1 map. Not Crash, though that is a great map. The one with the long corridor, it's kind of shaped like a Z.
Yeah. Where you could rocket jump on the side of the area and get out of bounds.
Yeah, you could get out of bounds. But what's that one called? Because there was the long sniper path, but then there was also like the two paths along the sides that you could run through the buildings.
I keep wanting to call it Crossfire, but I don't think that's right. Is that right?
That might be right, yeah. That's a great map.
That's
yeah,
right.
Call of Duty. Oh, yeah, Trav coming in hot with the fucking information. We love it. Yeah, Crossfire was awesome. I mean, and it's so funny. When I first got into Call of Duty, I didn't realize like map structure. I knew the maps well, but I didn't realize like the ABC
The lanes
structure that is actually the core of all like their best maps. And it's like, holy shit, yeah, they do. When they nail that formula right, it's just great. Like it's simple. It enables different forms of play. It prevents. They're really good at making it like, oh, there's a good sniper spot, but like, dude, a guy with a shotgun can sneak up behind you and blast you, and it's not gonna be like unfair the way they're handling it. They have had maps where they suck, and it just feels like every time you spawn, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like I'm fucking all over the place constantly. But I'm more interested in a Call of Duty that's like, hey, we're just gonna bring back like all like the really good maps and just have a good time. It's the 20-year anniversary of Call of Duty, and we're not really interested in shaking things up at this point. We just want to kind of get as many people to play as possible and have fun. That sounds like the type of Call of Duty I would be interested in playing. That or Advanced Warfare 2. Shout out Advanced Warfare. It's the best Call of Duty game.
It's a sick game.
So fucking. Yeah. That said, it's like, oh, we were watching that video, like the live stream, and it's like, how are people like hype about this? Like
how are people excited? Like I can understand, like
I
you're
would
kind
play
of
that or whatever,
looking
yeah.
forward to playing because it's like, new Call of Duty, I can play that, cool new content, refresh the player base, whatever.
Yeah.
But like a genuine excitement for like, what? It's the same game they've been releasing now since 2007.
Yeah, I think that's maybe 6.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, listen, Call of Duty's fine, totally fine. Those games are good, but
they are very smooth to play. Like in general, they are very easy to pick up.
New one comes out every year. How can you continually get excited? At some point, the excitement has to dwindle. And there's like an argument, I guess, that it's like, yeah, kids are growing up all the time. So there's kids that are like, I've only played the 2 of these. I'm getting excited for the new one.
I'll tell you what, if Call of Duty like fully leaned into the Fortnite formula and we're like, hey, we're done releasing $70 titles, there's no campaigns, we are just a free-to-play game, and there's the Warzone Battle Royale, but there's also the entire multiplayer offering, and there's like a battle pass that you can charge fuckloads of money, I would probably play every new iteration because I do think the gameplay is fun enough. Like seasons would be fun to jump into and check out. But I don't think they've nailed like the Warzone formula, the Battle Royale formula yet. Like I think that there have been areas where they've had some successes, but they're clearly not at the same level as something like Fortnite. You know what I mean? Fortnite is like, holy shit, like people jump at every new season of fucking Fortnite.
Well, Fortnite does like a lot of crazier stuff with
they
content,
do crazier
I
stuff
think.
for sure.
Like
Jujutsu Kaisen crossover.
shocked they haven't done like a Warzone Zombies like official like, hey, for this season of Warzone.
Didn't the Black... Oh, yeah, that would be cool. Like a season where like, hey, the Warzone map this season is infested.
Yeah.
It's called Infection. The Infection season or whatever. And you're like, oh, yeah, like there's zombies all around the place. So like you get extra points by killing zombies, and they have the fucking ray gun and whatever. Didn't Blackout have that little side of the map? Remember there was like the little
the
asylum?
lighthouse.
There was the lighthouse, and then there was like an asylum or something, right? And it was like, and yeah, you could find the ray gun and stuff, right?
Sure, yeah.
I think Blackout was my favorite iteration of the.
I mean, Warzone might have stuff like that. I don't know. I haven't played it in forever.
It's been a minute since I've tried it.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below what you think of
Keep
Warzone.
saying that.
What are you talking about?
Let us know in the comments below what you think of him keep saying that.
See, it sounds good. Shit, bro. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I probably won't. I probably won't play Modern Warfare 3, but hey, if you and a bunch of other people are like, hey, let's play, I could be convinced. But
I don't plan on playing
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Shit ton of games to play.
Too many. Yeah, I got Lords of the Fallen comes out the end of this week on October 13th. I'm super excited to play that.
Spider-Man comes out this month.
I probably won't play it, but I am really curious to see how it does because I'm curious if it's actually going to be a Game of the Year contender or not. And I just know that like it's just not going to end. We got the Elden Ring DLC coming.
That's not coming.
You're right. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
They're killing themselves. It's the whole thing. Shout out TikTok.
We have a comment
Oh, we got a comment. Which we got?
from Gavordia. He says, Warzone sucks.
Oh, shit.
Hey, Gavordia, can we get a ban on that guy? He's bringing some negativity.
Yeah, real quick. Let's just go ahead and let's just